I've thought about this lately because I never wanted to be anything else. Mm-hmm. And part of me wonders if I ever even had any exposure to what other jobs do. Like, I don't know, what does an architect do all day? Do they draw stuff? What does an engineer do? I have no idea what these people do all day.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Biz Dad podcast. Today, we are chatting with Brian Glass. He is yet another, if you have been listening to this at all, yet another GoBundance guy. Happy to have as many GoBundance guys on as possible because they tend to be solid dudes that are enjoying being dads if they are dads, and that's why they're on this podcast. But I'm looking forward to chatting with Brian, getting to know him a little bit more. He and I have met multiple times up in the DC area. He's a lawyer up there, but I'll let him kind of take over all of that. So Brian, welcome. If you can, please give us a little bit of an introduction about you and your family. Tell us as much in depth as you'd like to go to there, and then a little bit about your business as well.
So, like I said, I'm a lawyer in the Northern Virginia area. I represent people who've been hurt in auto accidents against insurance companies. I'll be 40 in August, which is kind of weird to say. I've got 3 kids, all boys, a 10-year-old, 8-year-old, 5-year-old. Been married for almost 14 years to my wife, Krista, who came and joined me at the law firm about a year ago now. My dad and I run our law firm together. It's called Ben Glass Law. I joined him 4 or 5 years ago after a decade of practicing on my own in the same geographic region, sort of in a competitive space, but not exactly. And then just earlier this year, joined his other company called Great Legal Marketing. We teach lawyers in solo and small law firms how to run better practices, run better businesses. Adam, the thing is that most lawyers are pretty good at the lawyering thing, but really, really bad at all of the business stuff. So the hiring, firing, personnel management, spending, and then of course, marketing. So we teach lawyers in solo and small practices how to do that.
Awesome. That I didn't know that part about the Great Legal Marketing thing. That's pretty cool. I'll have to dig into that a little bit. So, but you said you joined with your dad after competing a little bit. So let's chat about your dad a little bit and tell me kind of like what it was like growing up with your dad, who your dad is, and anything that sticks out to you in some of that younger period of your life.
Yeah. So I was listening to one of your earlier episodes yesterday on my drive home and kind of thinking about what am I going to say? Because it, largely was normal. So he was, as I was growing up, was a medical malpractice plaintiff's side lawyer, which is in the same space that I'm in now, auto accidents. It's all contingency fee based, which means there's no trading dollars for hours. And if you work any longer, you're not necessarily making any more money. And so, most lawyers have the problem where they're not at home on nights and they're not at home on weekends. We never had any of that in our family. So I'm the oldest of 9. The first 5 are biological. The last 4 are adopted from China. And spanning in ages from I'm 39 down to, I think the youngest is 20 or 21. There's so many, it's hard to keep track now. So wide swath of kids. My dad coached everything, like coached my little league teams. He played college soccer, so he coached all of our soccer teams. And at one point he left the firm that he was at, started a solo law firm on his own, really to be out of the city, closer into the suburbs, so that he could coach 3 soccer teams at the same time. Wow. So that's the framework that I approached parenting from. And I've ended up really, without really thinking about it very hard, doing almost the exact same thing. So coached both my older kids' soccer and baseball teams. The younger one, who's 5, he started playing soccer. I don't have the temperament to coach 5 and 6-year-old soccer. So
I don't know who does.
I'm going to wait a couple of years before I do that. But my dad, who's always around and never missed any sports, never missed any concerts. And so I just try to do the same thing. And again, I don't think it was intentional that I've gotten to that space, but it's just the modeling that I had.
Yeah. That's awesome. That well, first off, appreciate you listening to the podcast. So yay. Yeah. Second, it is one of the. I don't know if there is such thing as a normal upbringing, right? I mean, especially after having multiple of these conversations, it's kind of everybody comes from somewhere different, and everybody has a different lens on where they see the world. So I think it's awesome that you are able to kind of pick apart and see like, oh man, like my dad was actually there. My dad showed up to these things. And as you were growing up, was it obvious to you like, holy crap, I've got a very present dad compared to other dads, or was it just this is what it is? I don't know any different.
No, I think it was this is what it is, and I don't know any different.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I mean, and when I say normal, I mean that just seems to me that everybody in my circle of friends in middle school and in high school had a 2-parent household, at least to the extent that I was paying attention to it. Right. This is probably isn't true, but everybody who I was paying attention to seemed to have a 2-parent household. So no, I didn't really notice that or appreciate it growing up because I didn't really see the alternative very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Honestly, that's clearly a rarity, because you're actually one of the first people that have mentioned that I've talked to about having that level of clarity. So I think that's awesome to be able to come from that and to then, you've been married for 14 years and to try to drive towards that same thing. Like because they say, well, you're either running towards something or running away from something, right? And what is it that's motivating you? And you seem to be running towards the same thing that you had, which is awesome. And you even started working with your dad, so like it makes it even more like how that is what you're running towards.
In part, what I'm running towards is that for the first, really for the first 6 or 7 years of my older son's life, he was all about mama, and all of my boys have been all about mama. And so I've been running towards carving out the space where mom isn't so much, so that we can have a little bit of one-on-one time. Yeah. And whether that's been sports, or I was briefly involved in Cub Scouts, although I'm like the least outdoorsy person that you've ever met. So that's kind of the space that I've tried to find with them. And I think, the challenge for my relationship with my wife is that, okay, if I take one of them and we go play soccer, that means you're at home with the other two, right? If I take one of them and go play baseball, you're at home with the other two, or if I'm coaching the team, then you've got to shuttle the other two to the other one's practice. So that's a challenging, especially with 3 and you're kind of playing zone defense. That's a balancing act. But yeah, I think I'm running towards I've got to play some role in their lives when all they want to do when they're at our house is be with mom. So we'll be sitting on the couch watching family movie night, and I'll be on one side of the U-shaped couch, and all 4 of them will be on the other side, all 3 boys right on top of her. So I get a little bit jealous of that, but then she's like, I can't go anywhere in this house and have it be quiet. So,
Yeah, I have. Does your wife work? Well, she started working with you guys at the law firm a year ago, you said, right? But did she work from home from then, or was she a stay-at-home mom before that, or what was the setup before that?
No, so she's an HR professional. She was effectively working at an IT startup. They had about 16 people. They grew to 80, and then they got acquired. And then really her life after acquisition went really downhill at work because 3 different companies had been rolled up. 3 different payroll systems, 3 different timekeeping systems, 3 different vacation policies, question. And she was getting up at 5 to answer emails until 7 when the kids woke up. Then she and I would get them ready, get them off to school. And then, we came home, we'd be with them from 5 to 7, put them down, and she was answering emails again from 7 to 9. I was like, I own part of a law firm, and you work at a big IT company. Like, why are you working so much harder than I am? And is there a way for you to exit that and come work with us? So she had a retention bonus that vested. We took some of that money. She took a little bit of time off and then came and worked. And the idea was she was going to be working part-time for us, but she really loves being around people. And so what was supposed to be 25 or 30 hours a week has really evolved into almost 40, just because she likes being around the people in the office.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome to be able to work with your wife on there. I mean, how's that been going for the last year? Has that been something that's been raising contention, or has it been freeing almost? Has it been
what both she and I and me and my dad are really good at is staying in our own lanes in the law firm. So we run on EOS, and I don't have any opinion on anything in the HR quadrant, right? And so I just let her make all of those decisions. And because of that, there's really no conflict about, well, I think we should do this policy and she thinks we should do, I don't really care. And she doesn't really care about any of the operations of the auto accident section. No. So it's been good. And really the best part for us has been that it now frees us up because we're physically in the same place all day. And so like if we want to go have lunch and we don't have to hire a babysitter to come in at night. We don't have to travel to each other for lunch together. And for us, like we had a really hard time when all the kids were young, and you can't have any serious conversations until after they're in bed, 7:30. And then you're mentally exhausted because you've gone to work and you've raised kids all day. And so it's freed us up to have good, intentional, deliberate conversations at a point where we both kind of had the mental stability and the framework to do it. So yeah, it has been 100% a positive thing for our relationship.
That's phenomenal to hear. That's great. Yeah, I think the clear lines make a huge difference when it comes to working with your spouse. From everything, I don't work with my spouse, but we've worked in the same offices before, doing similar jobs, but never working together. That was all military government stuff. But we've talked about, okay, well, when she retires in 2 years, what is our plan? Like, does she want to join in the business? Does she just want to be a stay-at-home mom? Does she want to? I don't know. But the biggest reason that I asked all that was trying to figure out, what it is about your wife that the kids are always wanting to be around. Because for me, I pick them up from school, I drop them off at school, I'm always the one there. I work from home, so right now in summer vacation, they're running around the house out, doing their thing. So it's always daddy, 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 daddy all the time, because that's who they're around all. But my wife is gone, 9-10 hours a day, going to work and driving back and forth and doing all the stuff. So I was just trying to kind of figure out, is it that she's home with them more, or how all that kind of got started.
Yeah, I think she's just more fun than I am.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah. I mean, I worked a lot with lawyers, so I'm not, I was on the investigation side, so having to deal with lawyers, I'm tired of that, to tell you what. So yeah, I would hang out with your wife more too if I were them.
Yeah,
so.
you and everybody else we know. That's fine. Listen, I know my role.
Other than your clients are probably pretty pleased to be hanging out with you, right? So. But that's funny. So when you joined the law firm with your dad, how did that kind of, you said you went from something semi-competing to then kind of joining with him. What was that like, and how did the joining happen?
Yeah. So I practiced across town for the first 10 years of my career, growing up in an auto accident practice and then kind of growing my own book of business. And I did that. And we never really had a discussion when I was getting out of law school about coming and working for him. But I did it deliberately so that I could make my own friends, make my own way of doing things, and not be introduced as his son, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's, and I still in the back of my mind have this like born on third thinks he hit a triple sort of thing on my shoulder, right? Yeah. And so I wanted to be on my own for a long time, so that I could make all my own ways of doing things. And then when we had our third son, my wife had a really hard delivery, like baby came like that. They had to rush her to the delivery room. She ended up in the ICU for about 24 hours. He was in the NICU for 10 days. And, at the time my dad was 60 and I was 35. And we're like, well, if we don't do it now, like we might not ever join together. So really from that happening to me quitting my firm where I was a partner to coming and working for him was about 6 months. And so we came together. We had a bunch of turnover. He had a partner at the time who, for a number of business reasons, like we didn't work out when I got here. And so he left. And then we've grown it in the last four or 5 years. So I joined in 2019. So 4.5 years. We've grown it about 4x. At least the auto accident side has grown 4x. And the revenues of the firm writ large have grown almost 3x. So it's been a really good combination of like high level thinking, which is his gift. And my gift is, okay, how many phone calls does it take to generate a client? What's the average case value? And if we want to go from here to here, how many more phone calls do we need to generate? Now, how do we go and do that? So yeah, we've just been really complementary skill sets, and it's worked out really well.
That's really cool. I am interested. How increasing your book of business, doing those phone calls, what is it that you're chasing down? Just in my own curiosity on like, to who do you make the phone calls to? Is it insurance companies? Is it people? Is it, are you like monitoring, the police blotter to know where car accidents were? Yeah. Like how does that kind of work? Just wondering the back end of that.
How do we generate business?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can't do any of that stuff, right? So as a lawyer and especially as an injury lawyer, there are certain ethical rules about what we can do to generate business. We're not allowed to do things like go to hospitals and sign people up, right? So Matt Damon in Rainmaker is doing that. You can't actually do that. We at least in Virginia, you're not allowed to get a copy of all the police reports and send those people mailers for auto accident cases. Ironically, you can do it for DUIs. So if somebody gets a DUI, you can send them direct mail. So what happens is, if you've been arrested and you're trying to hide it, right? And then you get 17 letters from criminal defense lawyers, then you have to explain that to whoever else you're living with. No, we go really to circles of influence. So I want to, in the auto accident practice, I want to find small mom and pop style physical therapies. I want to find small solo owned chiropractor offices, and I want to explain to them ways in which I can make their business run better. So what happens in most injury law firms is once the case comes in, it doesn't get worked up very quickly and it sits around for a long time. And so one of the things that we did is I said, how can I make every step in this process go a little bit faster? And so my pitch to chiropractors and physical therapists isn't, I'm going to send you more cases. It's every case that you send me, I'm going to turn into money for you faster than anybody else is. And so most firms, might take 18 months to 2 years to turn a case all the way around. On a smaller case, we can turn it all the way around in 6 to 12 months, which for a small business who's sending us that money is, it's like a godsend. Like I can double the money that's coming back to you. And the other complaint that everybody has about lawyers in that space is when the lawyer does settle the case, he calls me and tells me why I need to accept 30, 40, 50% of what my actual bill is. So we try very hard not to have to do that because we'll actually take cases to trial. So insurance companies take us seriously, fully value the cases, and then I don't have to come back to the doctor and make them negotiate the bill. So our marketing really is based not on how do I go and have the best website and how do I go and have the best pay-per-click campaign so that I can attract one client. It's how do I find the one person who might bring me 10 clients.
Yeah. So creating having multiple funnels as opposed to just going after a web of people. So, okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. I had no idea that you aren't allowed to get police blotters and all that type of stuff. And I just figured that would be something to be like, oh, well, there was more accidents, I did know that you couldn't go to the hospital though. I didn't know that part, but interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Did you want to become a lawyer because your dad was a lawyer, or was it like tell me about that? Because I joined the military because my parents were in the military. I didn't I was just like, yeah, that's what we do,
I've thought about this lately because I never wanted to be anything else. And part of me wonders if I ever even had any exposure to what other jobs do. Like, I don't know, what does an architect do all day? Do they draw stuff? What does an engineer do? I have no idea what these people do all day, which is funny is we're doing like voir dire at a trial and you're talking to a jury, say, what do you do? And they say, I'm a computer scientist. And I'm like, you're going to have to tell me what that means. Like, what is your day-to-day thing? So no, I mean, I never wanted to do anything else. I like being kind of on stage and being in front of juries and to a certain extent, I like making arguments and seeing if you can win. And you get immediate feedback, right? I argue for 15 minutes, you argue for 15 minutes, one of us wins. Yeah. So there's that. And I never ever considered doing anything else.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I never considered anything else on the military side because I didn't have that insight either. Like I just kind of. I was like, yeah, I love working on cars. My dad worked on planes. I'm going to love working on planes, and this is just what I do, is what I've seen, is what I know, But so now that you said recently you started thinking about it, do you think that, are you still very pleased with the route that you went? Or are there ever any, I wonder what would have happened if I did X, Y, or Z?
I'm really pleased with where it's gotten me because it allows me, even working for somebody else in a law firm, like it allows you the entrepreneurial opportunities, right? So if I can go, I've never liked working in a job where I was making the same amount of money as the person next to me. So I waited tables through college and if I could turn more tables than you in the same evening, I was going to make more money than you were, right? I never liked those jobs like in retail where you and I were making the same amount of money and I was working harder. And so being a practitioner in a small law firm lets you do that. Yeah. Lets me go out and find more clients. And in my business, because it's all contingency fee based and I get paid only if we win cases, like, okay, there's a couple levers to pull. I can get more clients. I can work cases faster, or I can make cases worth more money, or I can do all three and you increase your effective hourly rate exponentially if you can do all three. Yeah. So that's what I really like about doing that. Would I do anything else if I were going back now? I love the business side. So I love looking for the levers to pull and trying to stay ahead of technologies and things like that and figure out, like, AI is coming for legal, right? Yeah. There's a Goldman Sachs report that says something like 56% of jobs in the legal space will be replaced by AI. And so you can do two things. Like, you can try to learn another skill set, or you can figure out how to use AI better than anybody else in the legal space, because most lawyers are not going to work on that, right? So figuring all that stuff out and figuring out how to leverage, time, talent, opportunities, and money is something that we able to do in a small law firm space. So I don't know what else I would go and do now.
Okay. Awesome. I mean, and it sounds like you've been growing the business quite a bit the last couple of years, which is phenomenal. Like what that trajectory sounds like it's going. But so all right, let's switch gears a little bit over to your kids. Do you, how much exposure to what you're doing do your kids have? And how much exposure do you want them to have, right? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. My kids, so they know I'm a lawyer. They think that I go to people's offices and take money from them. Oh, very good. Yes. It's interesting. It's not like we think Dad helps people. It's like he goes to insurance companies and takes money from them. Beyond that, it's kind of hard, I think, to explain to 5, 8, and 10-year-olds what you do. We haven't, like next career day, we'll probably take the older one to the courthouse just so he can see here's what goes on all day. And they come by the office, especially because Mom and Dad are working together. They like to come in and do things like Xerox their hands, radar supply closet. You've never seen kids that are more excited to have branded notepads than my kids are. And then we've got a fantastic snack drawer. So we have a little wellness room with a massage chair and a walking treadmill. So they like playing with all that stuff. But exposure to what we actually do, not a whole lot.
Okay. Do you have plans besides the going into the courthouse for the 10-year-old type of thing? Like, do you have any plans on exposing them to whether it's the business side or the legal side?
Not right now. If he's interested and he wants to join, great. But no, we don't have any deliberate plans to bring him on board.
Okay. Yeah, that's I'm trying not to have deliberate plans necessarily. My whole goal for my kids is to let them know that they have lots of options. Like, they don't have to do exactly what Dad does. They don't have to do exactly what Dad did. I'd almost prefer they don't do what Dad used to do. But if that's what they want to do is go join the military, then go join the military. But I want options to be out there. I want conversations to be had. My son approached me a few months ago, like, hey, so Dad, are you an employee or an employer? So then we got to chat about what an employee is, what an employer is, and all the stuff. So, getting them exposed to various different things. But I think that the benefit of where you're at is you not only are you a lawyer and you get to show them what the law firm looks like, but you're also a business owner and you get to show them what it's like to run the business side of it. So, gets to expose the kids on multiple different levels. So, So tell me about sports. I love talking to dads about the sports. Sounds like you're coaching multiple teams and doing all this stuff. So what does that look like for you? And what was your sports background? And then how does that kind of correlate into the kids' sports?
Yeah, so I played low-level soccer all the way through high school. Low-level travel wasn't good enough to make the high school sports teams. And then after college, I got into running. So I ran marathons for a little bit, and then I wasn't getting any faster. So I just started running longer. I've run 100 miles. I've run 70 miles, run a number of 24-hour races. I probably finished maybe 24 ultra marathons, largely before all of the kids, right? My last one was 5 years ago. It was a 70-mile race in Pennsylvania. My wife was 8 months pregnant. I dragged her, dragged her a state and a half away. She stayed with friends of hers, but then I ran all day, right? And so I remember being at it was the middle of June and it was hot. And I remember sitting at an aid station, like either mile 45 or mile 54. Like I want to quit and I want somebody to come pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
But like the shame of I dragged everybody a state and a half away and now you got to come and I'm not even going to finish. So I got up and I finished that. So that's my, my background is like mediocre to B- athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the framework that I approach like raising my kids in sports are. So mine are playing soccer and baseball. I've coached both. I'm a better soccer coach than I am a baseball coach. My 10-year-old just last night, he had his first practice kind of tryout with like a travel team. And it would be the first sport that he's ever played that dad hasn't coached. And I think he's at an age where he needs that. Mm-hmm. He's probably upper third of the club league skill wise right now, upper third to upper quarter. And I don't have the skill set to get him, continue to make him better at that. And he needs to hear it from somebody else. Like he's approaching that age where it's going to be better coming from somebody else. So he's doing that. My 8-year-old is going to play baseball again in the fall. I go and I'll assistant coach that. I was coaching baseball a couple of years ago and it was the first year of kid pitch. And I had this kid, I had run out of arms, right? Because there's pitch counts in kid pitch at that age. And so I'm auditioning kids to pitch in, Thursday night's game or whatever. And I had this dad that comes up to me and he's like, "Thank you so much for letting Charlie pitch. I was a Division III pitcher in college." I'm like, why are you letting me? Why are you letting me teach him how to throw a baseball? So my biggest frustration with coaching is exactly that experience. It's like, man, I'm really at the precipice of running two businesses, raising 3 kids, coaching multiple sports teams. And it frustrates the heck out of me that there are dads sitting on the sideline, not doing anything. Yeah. And I've been that dad. Like we play basketball and I sit on the sideline and I don't do anything. I don't know anything about basketball. And so I try to give a little bit of grace, thinking like maybe the dads that are sitting there, maybe they're coaching 3 other things in Cub Scouts also. But that really frustrates me that you have that level of expertise and you're not offering it to the kids. So I just think as long as they want dad as a coach and as long as they'll listen to me and as long as I can get, 50% of the team to listen to me, I'm happy to volunteer my time and go do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that, I don't know. My son doesn't play like organized sports at the moment. He's a golfer and he loves golf and he wants dad to coach him all the time. I'm just only a moderately okay golfer. So it's like, I can't, like he's already, like skill level wise, if you adjust distances for his age, he's already just about as good a golfer as I am, so it's like, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to teach you, but let's go out and learn. Let's go do these things. I'm at every practice. I'm at, as evolved as I can be. But thankfully he's got coaches that are, they've got their card, their PGA card and that type of thing. So they're like, good coaches and doing their thing. But, I wonder what it is that goes through the brains. Like because I always want to be there. I always want to be involved. So, it makes me wonder, is it like an inferiority thing or is it did you talk to that dad at all about like why he's not trying to do any coaching or anything? Or is there any?
I should have, but I didn't, where was that conversation going to go? But you're right. It's either, I don't know, like everybody needs a break. And so maybe that 2 hours twice a week is his break from whatever else is going on at home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. For me, it's I would like to encourage as many dads as possible. Hence, I'm doing a podcast about dads, is to be as involved as they can be with their kids' life. I mean, I've seen a lot of, and I've beat this dead horse a lot, but the military has a ridiculous divorce rate. So a lot of dads, whether they want to say it's by choice or not, if they're in a divorce, then it's by choice in one way, shape, or form. not involved in their kid's life, and it breaks my heart because I've seen a lot of the kids just kind of you get pushed aside and you don't really know what's going on in their brain. So if we can get as many dads as possible involved in the sports, involved at home, doing whatever it is, teaching them about their business, about their work, just being an involved dad, I think that makes a huge difference in lives. So hopefully somebody hears this and encourages other people to go be coaches and go be involved. But
and you don't, to your point about inferiority complex, you really don't have to be that far ahead of any of these kids.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch YouTube and learn how to put together a 60-minute practice, right? It's not that I've asked ChatGPT to come up with practice plans for me,
nice.
Right?
Yeah.
This stuff it's all out there. And at the end of the day, if it all goes to hell, you throw up your hands and you tell the kids to scrimmage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And they're more happy to do that than they are to do any drill that you want to do, especially at a young age. So it does take, and the thing is, the thing the parents should know is, like, if you sign up to be an assistant coach, we don't have enough coaches. So the league is going to call you and ask you, will you come be the head coach? So.
Yeah. Have you seen Catch Me If You Can, the movie?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So Frank Abagnale is who that's about. And he, they'd asked him afterwards, hey, how does it that you went and taught to these, doctoral classes and everything? He's like, I just had to know what was going on next week. That's all I had to know. Like, I just had to be one chapter ahead of them. That is all I had to do, and it was like, well, that's a valid point. So, I'm looking at homeschooling my kids right now. And by the time this goes out, they'll likely be being homeschooled. Right. And I'm like, man, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I've never been a teacher before. I barely can help them do their homework, I don't, so God bless me if I'm going to be able to do this. But, I order a list. They send me all of the curricula, and I'm okay. Well, I just have to know what's going on next week. Like, that's all I need to do. Just be one step ahead of the game. I never thought about the ChatGPT side, though. That would be a valid way to go. That's ChatGPT does all sorts of things.
It does also, and all you need to do is, so the hack that I learned a couple of weeks ago is you just need to ask it what it needs to know in order to tell you how to do something, and it'll come up with the list of things. You spit back the answers, and then it comes up with a very detailed, a homeschooling week for you. Yeah. So you can run the whole thing off of that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, your wife might not want to hear this, being an HR professional, but my partner and I had kind of built out. We're trying to get some solid job descriptions and all that type of stuff. So, like, he gave ChatGPT a prompt, built all this stuff out, finally got it to the point where it was spitting out the job descriptions that we wanted it to do, and then he said, "All right, now tell me what I need to, I'm going to give this message to Adam. Tell me what Adam needs to tell you to be able to do the same exact thing." And it just creates this whole prompt. Said, "Hey, give me this prompt and we'll know what to do." And then, so now we just spit all this stuff out, and it builds out these HR, all this HR docs. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to HR than just building out those types of things. But I'm like, boy, how easy is that? That is phenomenal. Yeah. But I don't know where AI is going to bring us. But all I know is that that intelligence is definitely going to surpass my intelligence. So I'm down with using it.
Challenge for you going into homeschooling the kids is going to be the role of AI and ChatGPT and whatever the 2.0 for that is to the education system. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a school teacher who says, they've built all these workarounds in school to keep you from drafting your term paper using ChatGPT. Why are you doing that? Like, that's a skill set that this next generation is going to need. And so I appreciate what you would want to know that they can do it on their own. I get that kind of, sort of, but like when I started law school, they taught us how to look things up in books. Like, why are we doing that when we have Westlaw and Lexis that it's all online? Like, when am I ever in my profession going to have the skill requirement that I know how to find something in a law book? And I've never worked in a place that actually had up-to-date physical books in the office. So it's kind of the same thing. So the role of how do you learn not only the subject matter, but then how to use all of the tools to build a really cool product going forward. So that's a fun challenge for you. And of course, you only have to stay 10% ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I haven't I should introduce my oldest. He loves doing that type of stuff. Just introduce him to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, go figure some stuff out. Tell me what it can do." Because I'm sure he'd figure out how to do all sorts of stuff in there before I even get to it. But do your kids use ChatGPT at all? Do they know anything about all that?
No, they haven't used that, but they became, so my kids were in kindergarten and second grade the first year of COVID. And so they became, computer whizzes because they were, hey,
what's up, buddy? You wanted me to come check out the playroom? I can't right now. Yeah. You want to say hi to Mr. Brian? So this is Adam.
Hey, bud, how are you?
My oldest.
Good.
All right. You going to go back to the playroom so I can finish this conversation?
I want you to come check it out.
Well, I can't check it out right now. You see that? It says it's a recording right now. We're recording this conversation. Here you are trying to get in on another podcast.
Oh, pooh.
Get out of here. I'll be over there in a little bit. Yeah. I love you, buddy. Have a terrible time. Yes, I held it so you wouldn't steal. Well, yesterday, it stole my ear pod and walked around with it. Yeah. I was like, "What the dickens, punk kid?"
That's a way to cut the podcast short. No, so my kids, they were starting second grade and starting kindergarten the first fall that was kind of canceled by COVID, and they became, my second grader became a PowerPoint wizard somehow. So he would just go to Google, do a Google image search, and he couldn't type and couldn't spell, but he would voice to type, whatever his search was. And, I came in one day and he's put together this whole PowerPoint of international soccer stars for me with like fade in, fade out, stars, spinning, all this stuff. So yeah, they're going to be far ahead of where we are in just a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I look forward to that. Honestly, it's just so much fun to watch them kind of grow and change. And that's one of the reasons I actually want to do the homeschool too, is like whatever their passions are and whatever they're kind of what's driving them, and like just let them explore. If like computer science, to your example earlier about, during your voir dire, like I don't know anything about computer science. I don't know anything about it. But if you want to learn how to code, then, well, Merry Christmas. Here's a computer and here's how to code, and like go figure it out. And they'll know way more than me in a matter of 10 minutes. So it's so much fun to watch them grow and do their things. And I can't imagine. To your point, I remember learning the Dewey Decimal System. And now, like, I'm sure my son's going to look at me and go, "What the heck? Who is Dewey? And why does he have a system for decimals?" Like, I don't, but no need for the Dewey Decimal System really anymore. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, see, but, or I'm telling everybody how old we are, I guess. So with the sports, like what kind of drive do you want? And are you doing with the kids? Like what kind of commitments do they have in sports? Like what are you? How is it that you're pushing or not pushing sports with the kids?
So I'm really not. My kids genetically are unlikely to be collegiate athletes, right? So I want them to work hard and work with teammates that they like, and achieve goals. And so I kind of think like every kid should be on a team that wins a championship, a team that loses in the championship, and a team that loses every single game that year, right? Because it's really just, it's character building and it's overcoming obstacles. I don't push my kids that hard, except you got to show up. Like if you, so the most recent All-Star tournament, I benched my son for making a face at me after he gave up a goal, and I said something to him, right? Okay, come sit down. Like, I don't care that you gave the ball away and they scored. I care about your reaction to that. And so if you're walking on the field, you're coming off, right? But we don't do like the over the top clinics and the private instruction. We really don't get wrapped up in our kids' sports identity all that much. Right or wrong, that's just not something that we've done.
Yeah. Is it was that an intentional thought process, or just kind of how you guys worked it?
I think it's just kind of who we are. So we have friends who are playing travel baseball, and they were a couple of years ahead of my oldest. And they said things to us like, if he's not in travel ball by the time he's 8, like he won't play in the high school team. And whether that's true or not, it's just like, it's not an arena that I want to put my kid into where here's the track that you need to be on at age 8, or else you won't achieve this goal 8 years in the future. I just think that's too much pressure. Now, if he were the best athlete on the field, I might feel a little bit differently about that. But I don't feel like me pushing him or not pushing him is keeping him from any athletic super potential that he would otherwise, reach if we weren't pushing him. So, no, I just want him to work hard, make friends, win sometimes, probably lose more often than you win, and ultimately like compete for a spot on a team, right? Because I think that's important too. But for now, I just want him to have fun.
Yeah. That's the kind of the route I've been trying to go with the kids is for me. I teach them about commitment. Like, you made a commitment, you're going to finish the season. Yeah. You're going to finish these things. But showing up is by far the most important part to me. Like, show up, do your best. I do what I can to adjust the. To your point, the reason you benched your son with the facial expressions, all like it's like a how do I teach them to lose well so that they can learn well, right? Because if you lose poorly, you're not going to learn as well as if you lose well. So, and I don't think I've perfected that by any means yet. I'm still trying to kind of work through that as far as like I want my son to be around people that are way better golfers than him. But that also means that it hurts, right?
Within a range, right? Because it's no fun. Like, so this is an expression, nobody wants to be the smartest person in the room, but it's also no fun being the dumbest person in the room. So you want to be somewhere in that range. I mean, to your point about sports parents, I'll tell you the most recent tournament that we were in over Father's Day, we were losing at halftime 8-0, 10-year-old soccer, losing 8-0 at halftime. And I convinced the kids during my halftime team talk that the second half was an entirely new game. And so second half, we're winning the second half 3-2. And one of my kids says, "Yeah, we're up 3-2." And the other coach looks him in the eye and goes, "No, you're not." I said, "Man, what are you doing? Like, what? It's club all-star soccer and they're 10. What are we doing here?"
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of kids just get beat down with that type of stuff, right? And then they end up just like hating their parents, hating what they're doing. And it's like, man, like they're kids. Let them be kids,
That's when I first started coaching youth baseball. One of the things the league director said is like, you at this age, at 6, 7, 8, you are not going to make anybody into the next Alex Rodriguez, but you might make him quit baseball. Yeah. And so the only goal is for us to have fun and learn a little bit every time that we're out there.
I really like that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that hits pretty well. I like that a lot. The Alex Rodriguez, but quit baseball. That's so with your wife, what kind of involvement does she have in the sports, if any? Like, did she play sports before, or did she, just this is all? Yeah, tell me about that.
Her sports involvement is limited to like beer league kickball.
Ooh, nice. Good. I hope she listens to this and knows that.
Yeah, I'll send it to her. That won't be a surprise to her. No, she's well, so that's not fair. So she was a high level high school bowler. Okay. All that skill has run right out her fingers, I guess, by now, because she and I are basically even, and I'm not very good at bowling. But she was like a high 200s bowler in high school, middle school and high school. And so her involvement is really like taking the kids to practice, taking them to games, being supportive, but she's not involved in coaching or anything like that.
Okay. She's completely on board with you doing the coaching and all that type of stuff, or is that more?
Yeah, so she's on board with that. Although, so I had the opportunity to continue to coach my 10-year-old and bring his team up to become a travel team, and it would have been a more serious time commitment for me. And she said to me, like, I think you've spent a whole lot of time coaching his teams, and I think it's time to kind of downshift and do somebody else's team. So I hear that. But otherwise she's on board with me with me coaching every day. At one point, I was coaching 2 baseball teams, so we were doing Monday, Wednesday practice for the older one, Tuesday, Thursday practice for the middle one, and then the league was kind enough to deconflict all my Saturday games. But that meant that we were spending all day Saturday on the field, and that was a lot. And it ends up being a lot for her because then she's back, managing dinner and 2 kids' bedtimes and policing whatever's going on with them. But I'll tell you, we have found that 2 things are true in our relationship. It's almost always easier for me to parent if I'm the only one home, and I think she would tell you the same thing, because there's no like running to mom or running to dad to say, well, dad said this, and whether that's true or not, asking permission from one parent, and the parent says maybe, and then they go and ask the other one, and you don't know, like it's like prisoner's dilemma. What did the other one say? But the other thing that's true is that with all 3 of our kids, when they're home, there's a certain level of stress with all 3 of them. But if you remove any one of them, then then the 2 who are left are friends. Like there's always competition among them for, whether it's the little one or the middle one, whether he's, he's my best friend or whatever. But if you remove any one of them, the 2 that are left get along perfectly fine. And so having one parent and 1 kid out at sports all the time makes the stress level in our house go down a little bit.
That's interesting. That's I am curious to see how that goes, because my 2 boys are like 2 peas in a pod. Obviously, they fight like brothers once in a while, but man, they're 2 peas in a pod. Like, and now they've got a little sister. They are just enthralled with their little sister. They love having a little sister, and I look forward to seeing kind of how that dynamic changes as they grow up a little bit.
As they compete for her affection, right? As she gets a little bit older.
So it sounds like you and your wife have some pretty solid conversations. You're trying to have good communication at work. You having I'll put it in my language, almost like date lunches together and doing that sort of thing. So tell me about like your conversations that you guys have had about raising kids, and how do you guys work through disagreements with your kids, and like or how you want to raise them, or that type of stuff.
I wish that I had a good system or secret sauce to share with you. I think the reality is, like, we went through a couple of hard years of raising very young kids and not communicating very well. And we've gotten much better in the last 2 years about pausing, letting the moment and the anger subside, and then like an hour or the next morning, an hour later or the next morning, saying, hey, this is what I think happened, like from my perception, and here's what I didn't like about it, and here's what I'd like for you to do differently next time. So I have a coach, she has a therapist. My coach is basically a therapist. But we've individually gotten a whole lot better at processing what's going on with us and then communicating that to the other person. But we don't have any great system that I can share with your listeners, or any framework
that's
Sunday night conversation. So we tried for a while to do, Sunday night after the kids go to bed, have a conversation, but we were just so mentally exhausted that if either one of us were kind of having a down day, it either didn't happen or it didn't happen very well. And now that all the kids are school aged, and we are finding more time to, after they all get out the door to school, or like I said, at lunch at the office, to have those deliberate conversations, and to not have to be the one that wins all the time, right? Like, fine, whatever, just go do that, and to not care when the other one says fine, whatever. What's important to you doesn't have to be important to me, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that not caring who wins part is one of the more important aspects of that, because like if a conversation between husband and wife turns into who won that conversation, then it's now you're just being divisive, you're not being cohesive, right? And I think that having a cohesive couple is by far more important.
Yeah, and I tell her that every time I come back from some kind of GoBundance event, like, what you would expect on the outside looking in is that you're going to get into the room and there's going to be all kinds of real estate tips and business tips and biohack and whatever else. And there is some of that, but I mean, we were in Tahoe. We must have spent 50% of the time talking about relationship with your wife and relationship with your kids. So So and I don't know how many rooms there are that are like that with high achieving entrepreneurial men. I just don't think that exists in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, and I've been a member for a year and a half to 2 years, and that's one of my big takeaways. And it aligns, frankly, with the time that we've had a little bit less stress in our lives, between the two of us, because I've seen the example of other men having those conversations with their wives, and now I'm equipped a little bit better to be like, yeah, that thing is not all that important to me, and let me try to help you, Krista, succeed in what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the kids and get out of the way, right?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the key things to take away with that is like being open to hearing it and being open to talking about it with other men who are maybe they're not struggling with it, maybe they're crushing it, and you just want to learn, and be vulnerable enough to say, you know what? I don't have the best communication with my wife. I'm not the best communicator. I am the hard-headed type A entrepreneur that just wants to crash through a wall, but my wife does not receive that well, as most people don't, So
right.
If you're open and willing to have those conversations, I think that it makes it allows you the space to improve. But it all has to come back to, are you willing to actually put in the effort and improve? Because some people just aren't willing to do that. Especially, I think, men. I mean, I look at the military side of the house a lot because that's a majority of my adulthood was military, and like everything you feel like you have to shut her in, keep quiet, then I don't have to talk to anybody about this. This is something I could deal with on my own, and that's not the case, nor is it healthy. Like, I mean, you got to be able to talk to people and be vulnerable. So to me, it's always, those are always the best parts about the GoBundance trips as well. It's like actually just communicating with other guys who are like-minded high achievers that are willing to open up to each other and chat. And I think that's one of the beauties of the tribe.
Been a number of other professional organizations and networking events, and almost everywhere else you go, it's all flexing.
Yeah.
But not within the tribe. And if anything, it's like people, yes, their wins get shared, but they're more interested in telling you things that went wrong so that they can get feedback, but also so they can keep you from maybe falling into some of the same traps.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing with the military side of the house. It's a lot of chest beating, and all of that. So it's taken work for me I think I'm coming up on 4 years now in GoBundance, and I'm always wanting to go to as many of the events as I can, because again, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with most. So if I can increase those 5 people, and it's only going to make me better. So if I can go to more of those events and talk to more people like you and try to grow as much as possible, to me, I don't know why people don't. So when it comes to those types of things, do you? So I sit down and talk to Adam from time to time when I come back from these trips. Have you had those types of conversations with your kids about what you do on these trips, or has that been something that you've worked in yet?
No, it hasn't been. So
why not? What the dick?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, that's good. So the skill set that I would like to pick up from the next one is getting my 10-year-old to answer any question with an answer that's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what'd you do at school today? I don't know.
Or nothing.
What are you working on? I don't know. Nothing. Right.
Yep.
So and he's the only one that's probably at the stage where he can, he could engage in that kind of conversation. Although I'll tell you, like I was listening to your podcast in the car with him the other day, and they pick this stuff up. So I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of days he asked me a question about that. But he's very hard to engage in conversation because you just get so much anxiety about answering the question or doesn't know how to answer the question. So no, we haven't had any discussions about that other than, sharing the photographs of the adventure, right? Snowmobiling, skiing, that kind of stuff.
Nice. Yeah. I think you should totally listen to all of the podcasts at least 10 times with your kids. Make sure that, you
on different devices,
on different devices at different time, yes. Totally think you should do that. Share it with them and tell them to share it with all his friends. But no, I think that so have you been to, I don't think you have, because if you've been in for a year and a half, and I've been to the Fan Abundance event, so I haven't seen you. Have you been in? So that to me was great too, because it exposes the kids to that type of those adventures, and B, like other entrepreneurial families, other kids who are driving towards different things, and like having conversations with kids that have parents of a like mind. So I would highly recommend kind of bringing your kids to a Fan Abundance event if you can. I don't know if you're going to Vermont, but
what is the age group of most of the kids?
So I mean, when we first went, I think my son was 5, and now he's 8. We've got everything from babies that have shown up, obviously not involved in much, but up to 22 years old. So there are quite a few kids actually in your age group. There are quite a few that are older as well. I mean, my oldest is 8. He'll be 9 by the time we go to Vermont, but and then I've got my other one will be 5 by the time we go to Vermont. But and then there were I have another 10-year-old, 9-year-old. So I mean, there's quite a few going on in there, and I think this one coming up is going to be even bigger. There's going to be quite a few different folks who are really trying to boost it up a bit. So if you're able to, I would say do that, and that might open up some of those doors to have those conversations and build family plans and goal boards.
So I bought Kiyosaki's game Cash Flow this week. We've been playing that, and my 10-year-old draws the cards. A tenant wrecked your apartment. He's like, "What? Who is tenant? What's he doing?" And then he drew it again later in the game. He's like, "Why? Why is tenant back in my other house wrecking my house?"
That's awesome. I want to buy that game so bad. Has it been pretty fun playing with him?
It's fun. So you will have to do most of the math probably, and the game will run a little bit slow because you have to do most of the math. But I skipped the kids version. I just bought the 101 version.
I was just going to ask
about that. They seem to be picking it up.
Okay. Yeah. The what made you want to skip the kids version?
Because I wanted to be able to play it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, good enough reason.
Selfishness.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, I think that because I don't know, those concepts you can't get in a lot of other places, and teaching the kids how to do that. Like we play Monopoly, and my son loves Monopoly. The 8-year-old, he actually beat me the second time he played Monopoly. But like getting their brains to think in those ways and do these things and open up the conversations, and we've started creating different goal boards and all sorts of different stuff for the kids to be able to be involved in those types of thought processes that we kind of get from our environment. So I totally want to do the cash flow game though. So if you come to Vermont, bring it, and we could try to get our kids to do it, and then we'll come in there and like wrecking balls, like completely destroy them.
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys are all losers.
Exactly. So Mike McCarthy though, he also I did like the Miracle Morning for Families. I just recently bought that, so I want to try to figure that out and see what that looks like. But he's put a lot of those. So he was running some Fan Abundance stuff beforehand. So it was having the family goals and all of that type of stuff getting built out, and putting different pictures for goal boards. And to me, it was so much fun to just kind of work with other families doing that. So I do recommend that you do that, just because Go ahead.
It might be good for my kids to see other families doing that.
Yes. Yeah. To me, that was probably the most important part of doing the Fan Abundance thing, is having them see that other families do the same stuff. And I'm not just this crazy dad that is asking them to do some weird things.
Right.
Because right now, I mean, none of their school friends, they don't go on epic adventures and do, travel the way we do. And, they just don't do that type of stuff. So I want him to be around people that do. I want the boys and now all 3 of them. That's been the hardest part, by the way, of having a third kid that's now a girl, is I can't just keep saying the boys because I have a girl now. So the kids, having the kids be exposed to that type of stuff is like, I mean, it's really important to me. So what would you say are like the top pillars as a family, if you were to, maybe they're not written down or anything like that, but would you say are like the top maybe 3 pillars that you are driving towards as a family?
I like that. So I think freedom, number one, to be able to do, the expression like what you want, when you want, with who you want, right? So that one, number one. I want my kids to do a better job of exposing my kids to other parts of the world and what other people have, right? We spend so much time staring at the Kindle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or watching YouTube or whatever else, like, and it's not reality, and it's this feedback loop of like the things that you've already liked. It's going to just show you more and more of it. And so I'm working on spending more deliberate time taking my kids out into the real world and showing them more and more of that. And then as they get older, I think exposure to other kind of athletic endeavors, like get off the couch, let's go hike in the woods, let's go swim in the lake, let's do stuff that's not kind of cookie cutter, the sports that everybody else is playing. Let's go pick up some skills and just get out in nature a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So what are you doing now to kind of prep for that? I'm going to start to pry a little bit and dig and stump you.
Yeah, you're gonna stump me because we haven't done
good.
You haven't taken very much action on that, but we have things like the summer to-do list, right? Mm-hmm. So go on a hike, go to some waterfalls, and go to the pool. Do races, things like that. But that's about all we've actually taken action on.
Okay. So in our communication, it sounds like sports are definitely still a pillar, and you're adding other athletic adventures to that. So the freedom side of the house, do you guys travel a lot, or is it more like I'll just stop there. Do you guys travel a lot?
Locally, yeah. So we have a beach house up in Ocean City, Maryland. We're going down with my family to Virginia Beach in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So we travel places that we can drive to for the most part. We're taking the kids on a plane spring break next year to go on a cruise in the Western Caribbean.
Nice.
But we haven't generated the kind of geographic freedom yet. And neither my wife nor I really have done that in our lives even before kids. So there's a little bit of our own comfort level is stretched by that, and then compounded by, well, we got to keep the 3 kids safe when they're on the road with us. So no, all of that is kind of on the horizon. We financially really kind of hit an inflection point within the last 12 to 18 months where that's opened up a lot more possibility for us. So I think all those things are coming. As the kids are a little bit more self-sufficient, don't need, the 5-year-old no longer needs a nap in the middle of the day. And so we can start to go and do all the things that we've been talking about for a while. And, whether that restriction and the we can't has just been in the back of our mind or in reality, I don't know. But we haven't done that stuff in the past.
So, to be a jerk, I'll say it's in the back of your mind. It's not a reality. Because and I say that because our second child was born in Japan, right? And then when we came to America, he was 7 months old, and the U.S. was his 6th country. So we had brought him to Indonesia, we brought him to Singapore, we brought him to Spain, we brought him, like, he was bounced all over the place. And it was, our oldest at 2.5 years old, I had him in a backpack climbing up Mount Fuji. So he was in like a little rucksack, and we climbed Mount Fuji together. And that was, the people that gave him high fives at the top, like, he thought he was the king of the world because he's the only child that's at the top, right? And he's running around, everybody's high fiving him. He's 2.5. He's like, this is awesome. He actually, to get disturbing for a minute, he actually had to poop while he was up there, and he just some random spot at the top of the mountain had to go to the bathroom because there's nothing for him. So it's like, well, sorry, buddy, so. But the adventures to me are extremely important. So giving them that example of why you're working hard is so that you can go and have these freedoms to be able to do these things. But Frank Smallin, I think you probably know him. He's up in the the area, but he's got a place over there in Ocean City too. So
he's I think 70 blocks north of us. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So you guys can link up with the kids out there and go have fun and do some enjoyable things out there in Ocean City. Have you been out to there's that the wild horses and all that out on that yeah, that was pretty cool. We lived just south of DC, but I would rent a small plane and fly over to Ocean City just because it's a really beautiful little airport to fly into right over the water and everything. We went and checked those out. My kids loved watching the wild horses running around and checking things out, so that was a fun little spot. But yeah, so the the exposure to the real world, give me an example of what that looks like, or what you want it to look like if it hasn't really been
so getting out and finding volunteer opportunities, right? Soup kitchens. Oh my, it's pouring outside now. Salvation Army, that kind of stuff. So my kids were in the Cub Scouts briefly, and we did a little bit of volunteer stuff. We didn't really mesh with the rest of that group, and so they quit. But we haven't found other opportunities to get out into the real world and see people who aren't, as fortunate as we are and as they are to have the means that we do.
Yeah, that's a tough one. We've talked about that in GoBundance. A bunch of us have talked about that. Like, how do we expose our kids to the challenges that maybe some of us had growing up, or some of us have seen in our life, without having to have them have the same hurt and pain as maybe we had growing up. So, I think that's a extremely valuable thing to do with the kiddos is let them see that and experience that. And like my sons are always wanting to give and do sorts of things. So every time they see a homeless person on the road, they're asking for something. Like, you can almost see their heart break, and they're just like, I want to give them whatever. That's like, and it's, I don't know. Like, I don't know where they got that heart, because I don't really have that. I don't the emotions. I don't really have. I refuse to give them money or anything like that. And it's not because I'm a jerk or a crass person, but it's like I don't know where that is going. But the fact that they want to always be giving is a wonderful thing. So I would venture to guess it would be the same with your kids if you're getting exposed to that.
Yeah. Sorry.
See, my son is back again, buddy. I don't need a sandwich. He's trying to deliver me a sandwich now. Man, oh man. You. What do you need, buddy? No, and he really wants to be on these podcasts as much as humanly possible. This is turning into a thing now. The cameos. Go eat them at a table. Anyways.
My kids want to be YouTube stars when they grow up.
I'm trying to tell them to be a YouTube star.
You need to get a camera and some basic video editing skills first. You don't think Mr. Beast started where he is, do you?
Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't want to be. He only wants to be on my YouTube channel, apparently, not his own YouTube channel. Yeah, because I told him that he should do YouTube like for golf stuff. Because I think that would be fun to kind of show what he's doing with golf and how the competitions are going, and show other kids that this is a possible thing to do. But no, he doesn't want to. No. I don't know, and that's funny because your kid wants to be a YouTube star. So
he says he wants to be.
Yeah. Well, see, here he is being a YouTube star. There you go, bud. Yeah, what a punk. What a punk. So he mentioned, hey, where are you going? There you go. All right. Well, so do you have any questions for Mr. Brian? No? You want to ask him any questions? He's a lawyer. He's got a kid that's the same age as you.
Now the hard questions are coming.
Yeah. His son plays soccer and baseball. No questions?
Yeah.
No, you just want to hang out over my shoulder? All right. No.
Hang out and listen to one side of the conversation.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're not taking my earbud again like you did last time. You little punk. Punk. But so the 10-year-old, obviously, so to me, I'm not a dad to a 10-year-old yet. So the change from an 8-year-old to a 10-year-old, like, what kind of transitions have you been seeing, and how has it been working through that?
Yeah. So mine calmed down a lot. Mine was, emotionally challenged, but he had big emotions when he was 8, and they've calmed down and they've delayed. And the other thing that we've noticed is he's starting to get like a little bit of shame around things. So doesn't want to walk, doesn't want to hold hands with mom on the way to school. There's certain things that are cool and not cool. And if the cool shirt isn't ready out of the laundry and he has to wear the uncool shirt, like it's can be a problem. So there is like a transition where they start being a lot more self-aware about things that are popular and things that are not. So that's been a challenge to navigate because he can't articulate what it is that he doesn't like about clothes. So he had a little bit of like a sensory thing about certain pants or whatever, but he's not able to tell you what he doesn't like about it. And now it's hard to tell whether it's the sensory thing about any piece of clothing or whether it's not the red Nike hooded sweatshirt that he loves, right? And that kind of manifests in like the only thing he wears to school now is soccer jerseys. That's it. Won't wear anything else. So we had kind of a little bit of a fight around his orchestra concert. He had to wear a white button-down dress shirt. We didn't even own one. Yeah. And, and explaining to him, you're not going to be the only one in school. In fact, like probably a third of the school is in the orchestra anyway. So they're all going to be wearing the same shirt. Like, you're not going to be not cool. You have to wear it to school. Yeah. So that's interesting. It's just kind of navigating those social school politics things. He hasn't had any real big blow-ups with friends. So we haven't had to deal with that yet. And girls aren't really in the picture at age 10. He's a little bit more analytical. He's asking better questions now about why we do things and about why certain things exist. So it's been a fun experience to watch his learning process.
I'm looking for, like, every stage, I try to tell him all the time, like, I've never been a dad to an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And now having a daughter thrown in there, like, so now I have to learn how to be a dad for you, just like you're having to learn and navigate how to be an 8-year-old. I have to learn and navigate how to be the dad to an 8-year-old. But watching all of those different stages has always been so much fun. I look forward to kind of seeing how it goes. But so it sounds like the kids are in public school. Is that right?
Yep, they are.
Have you found that to be as hectic as some of the news makes it sound like, or is it kind of, they're in Virginia public schools? Is that right?
Fairfax County. Okay. So Virginia public schools, we, one county to the west of us is Loudoun, which has been like some kind of battleground for, I don't pay a lot of attention to any national news, but for, I don't know, some kind of a book in the school, or there was something where a teacher had gotten fired for saying something. And I don't know any of these stories, but Fairfax has not really been a battleground for that. And no, that hasn't been an issue for us where we're like, we need to either put them in a private school or bring them home and homeschool them. Really, I wish that my wife or I had the temperament to be able to homeschool the kids. I don't think that we could do, 6, 7, 8 hours a day with them, managing their personalities, managing our own personalities, and teaching them anything. I would love to be able to do that and have the geographic freedom to go and kind of work from anywhere and raise them from anywhere. But I also think that might be the end of our marriage.
I wonder that myself as I'm looking at doing this adventure of what that's going to look like. But I grew up doing public school, and I just thought that was the best way to do it because I was exposed to so many different things. And my wife grew up private school, and so I was like, oh no, public school is way better. And now that I had kids, and I was like, and my previous job, in my defense, like I saw the worst of society that you could have, So it was like, I have got zero desire to have my kids go be exposed to society. Like it like scared the heck out of me. So I was like, nah, private school it is, But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're not seeing a lot of the craziness that's going on. That's a plus.
Yeah. And maybe I'm just not paying enough attention. But it has, there's nothing that's going on in Fairfax, and especially in our elementary school, that's bothering me.
No, good to hear. Absolutely great to hear. But, so do you have any thoughts, questions for me? Things you want to talk about? Anything that's coming up in your brain?
how are you all planning on navigating curriculum for homeschooling?
Ooh, yeah. So I actually had a meeting this morning with somebody to kind of go over various different curriculums, and because I don't know what I don't know, right? And I've been watching YouTube videos to try to learn about how it all goes, and there's a bunch of different curriculums that are out there. So I don't, what's good, what's bad, I don't know. But you can order like 3 different types of curriculum, whatever you want, and there's to kind of piece together how it works. So my goal is, if I end up doing this, which I'm pretty certain I'm going to, is we'll have like one type of math, one type of science, and then there's like a for lack of better terms, everything else type of programs that cover all of the I guess it's called English language arts now. Like, I don't know, like it, but so the ELA stuff and the some history and all that type of stuff. So my goal is to have adventures that go along with it, travels that go along with it. We're not always going to be able to travel, but if I can say, okay, well, this year or this week we're learning about sea animals in science, then adding a trip to the aquarium that week as well, to be able to say, okay, well, here now we get to go see some sea animals as part of our science class. But the curriculums that I'm looking at are very well structured already to kind of help me have something already laid out to be able to not have to be overly stressed. And from what I'm gathering, it's and it's very much dependent on the kid, but 2 hours a day, you can pretty much knock out everything that's needed. And we have an au pair to be able to take care of the kids the rest of the day. So it's like I knock out 2 hours in the morning with them, and then they get to go off and be kids. Like, I've got season passes to different theme parks down here, and then I'll probably add like aquarium passes and various different things, and yeah, there's quite a few different co-ops in the area that have sports teams and very like all sorts of things to be involved with other kids, because that's going to be very important to me to have the kids with other kids.
What is in Florida? Maybe not so much, but like, to what extent is there government oversight over like what you're teaching, or any standardized testing, or making sure that you're not just quote homeschooling and the kids aren't learning anything? Does that exist?
So it does. Every state has their own oversight on what it looks like, but you have to report every quarter what you're doing. I think it's every quarter. And then if you want them to do standardized testing, you can. But I think it's only required every couple years to do. You don't have to do it every year. It's you could do it every couple years. But then, so like the lady I talked to this morning, she's a certified teacher, and she does the Iowa standardized tests, whatever they're called, that are pretty common around. So if you can get that set up and do that every year to kind of see what kind of placement they're in and what their status is. But there's just some reporting requirements to the state of Florida to say what you're doing, and that's about it. And they even have a tax credit here in Florida that you can use if you qualify for it, to pay for your curricula, to have it sent to you, and pay for those tutoring classes if it's a structured tutoring class, to be able to send them to. Like, if I suck at physics and I need to teach them physics, I can use that money to pay for a physics tutor to go in and knock that out. So that's a bonus too.
And do you think you'll continue this all through high school, or at some point will they go back and matriculate back to public school?
I have no idea. Like, it's one of those, I want to take it year by year and see kind of where it's at. If they're really enjoying the homeschool stuff, I talked to one of the other GoBundance guys yesterday that's been doing it for 5 years, and he was like, every year I ask my kids, do you want to go back, or do you like doing what we're doing? And every time they're like, absolutely not. I love doing what we're doing. But they travel 100 days out of the year. So they're constantly seeing new places and learning about things from a different perspective. And the travel is, I'm hoping, going to expose them to more knowledge than just sitting in a classroom. So that's the hope, anyways.
So the other thing that comes to mind is, like, you seem very intentional about all of this. So I'm just curious what your journaling, especially like with the kids, like what that reflection and journaling or whatever process you have looks like.
Oh, that I don't do.
You don't do that?
I do zero journaling, and I've tried it. I don't know. I think a lot. Like, my brain is always going 100 miles an hour, and I process things rather quickly in that way. So I'll build out a whole plan in my head on how it goes. It just doesn't always come out of my mouth as well. So perhaps I should journal and get that down on paper a little bit better, especially if I'm going to try to communicate these things to my wife, because I'll start to say something and she's instantly like, well, wait a minute, what about X, Y, or Z? I'm like, no, I haven't got to there yet. That's all part of the plan.
That sounds familiar.
So the communication side is where I'm struggling on that, but no, I don't journal it at all. It's just been I talk to a lot of different people. I listen to a lot of different things, trying to really understand where it's going. Like, intentionally trying to meet with people that have, been there, done that, so I can figure out whether or not this makes sense for me. And, I'm also a Christian, so doing a lot of praying about it to try to figure out, like, is this what God is trying to tell me to do? I've been pondering, like, is this just a selfish thing because I like to travel and I want to drag my kids with me? Like, is it, what is it about this that really is hitting home for me? And I don't write it down. I don't journal it necessarily, but the things that keep coming back to me are much more involved with my kids, their education and understanding, applying my values and my systems and what I want out of life for my kids. But also open them up to say, okay, well, what is it that you like? And let's go learn what you like and help them to be able to chase their dreams and chase their thoughts that sitting in a classroom doesn't allow them to do. And I'm like, to go to your freedom point, right? I work from home. There are times, sure, while we're out at, Busch Gardens or Islands of Adventure or wherever, I get on my phone and I have to do some work, right? Or I got to make a phone call. But I've got the freedom to do this on a Wednesday, and just go out and do things. So if I could teach them that your freedom to chase what you want can get you somewhere in life, that's kind of what I'm hoping to do. I should be a little bit more intentional about writing all that down, though, so that way I stick to it.
Yeah. So, I'm like you. I process things quickly and I make decisions quickly, and then I forget what I decided. Mm-hmm. So that's my problem. Like, I had this great idea and fully fleshed out plan, and then 2 days later, I can't remember what it is. But I think this would be great for you and for your family to try for a season and see, okay, does this work? Does this not work? Maybe they go back to school, or maybe it takes off for you. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it for sure. Just to, I love the school that my oldest is in now, so I've got no complaints if we end up sticking with that. So one way or another, I'm happy. I just picture things like, I've got a conference that we're putting on in October, and I want to be able to drag him out there to San Antonio with me, and then I want to drag him to Vermont, and I want to drag him over to the East Coast of Florida for another thing that we got. It's like, I always want to be around the kids, and I always want to expose them to what I'm doing. So what better way to do that than to be teaching them myself? We'll see if it works. Or maybe I'll just mess them up really badly. I don't know. That's
right. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, what's the worst that could happen? They end up in jail, and I'm a degenerate father. But hey, we'll see. But time will tell.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, it was an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I thank you so much for your time. I loved hearing about the lawyer stuff, even though, me and lawyers, it's, yeah.
Most people are lawyers. It's fine.
Until you need them. You don't like lawyers until you need them, but
that's no.
Right. I wish you the best with the growth of the company. It sounds like it's going really well. And I hope to definitely see you in Vermont. All that said, if somebody wants to reach out to you, get a hold of you, is there any way you should send them to be able to do that?
Yes. I'm on Facebook, it's Brian Glass. I post the most stuff, ironically, on LinkedIn, which I don't think probably any of our GoBundance friends use very much.
I'm on there.
But I'm building an audience of lawyers who are interested in building better practices. So LinkedIn is the most natural place to find me.
Yep.
That's where you're going to get the most of me. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, Brian. Appreciate it. And I wish you and the family the best, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
Thanks, Adam. You too.
All right.